Did somebody say free performance increases? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'll be sharing 5 free ways to increase the performance of your PC. The first way that you can increase speed and performance on your PC is by enabling the Intel XMP or AMD EXPO setting for your RAM kit. If you bought RAM that uses Intel's Extreme Memory Profile or AMD's Extended Memory Profiles for overclocking, you may be missing out on some extra performance. The speeds at which these RAM kits run are advertised, but they're not activated by default. These profiles are something that actually needs to be activated in the BIOS, and they come disabled by default. That means your RAM would run at your system's default RAM speed setting, which might vary by CPU, but is usually around 4800 megahertz for DDR5. Sometimes when you buy a pre-built computer, the builder may overlook or forget to enable XMP, and you might find that it is disabled even on your custom built PC. And if you paid for a RAM kit that's supposed to run on an XMP profile, you're definitely not getting your money's worth. So how do you enable this speed boost? Well, it's not difficult at all. Boot up your computer and enter into the BIOS. This is most commonly done by pressing the delete key on your keyboard or a function key. You may have to check your motherboard's manual to find specifically what key your motherboard uses to get into the BIOS, but again, it's typically the delete key or a function key. For my motherboard, the Asus ROG Maximus Z790 Extreme, I can find this setting in the easy mode by pressing F7, or I can find it in the extreme tweaker panel. Find the setting labeled XMP and go ahead and set that to XMP2. XMP2 is the full memory profile from the manufacturer, while XMP1 uses partial settings from the XMP profile. You're gonna do the same thing on your AMD board, but it's gonna say EXPO, and you can go ahead and set your EXPO settings accordingly. By enabling this, my RAM went from running at 4800 megahertz all the way up to 7600 megahertz. That's almost double the speed of what it was running before. That is quite a speed increase if you didn't have XMP enabled before. Now, the speed increase is gonna vary by what RAM kit you've purchased, but in my case, that almost doubled my RAM speed, and that's quite an increase just by toggling a setting in the BIOS. While we're in the BIOS, there's another setting that you can set to increase the speed of your computer. Most processors are gonna have an automatic system to allow the processor to work at a faster frequency. But sometimes a motherboard can restrain the CPU from using these systems by some of the settings that are in the BIOS by default. For Intel processors, this setting is called Adaptive Boost Technology. And for AMD processors, this is called Precision Boost. You'll find this setting in a similar area on either Intel or AMD motherboards, and in my case, I found this setting again in the Extreme Tweaker section of my BIOS. You can go ahead and set that setting to enabled, which is going to allow the system to use the adaptive boost technology that the processor is built in with. Again, the location of this particular setting might be in a slightly different place depending on your motherboard manufacturer, but just look around a little bit for that setting and go ahead and enable it. Now, there may be another setting depending on your motherboard manufacturer that we need to check out. In my case, this is called the Asus Multi-Core Enhancement. Set this to enable Remove All Limits, which is gonna allow your CPU to have free range over optimized power and current thresholds, and it's gonna rely on the CPU's built-in thermal throttling. After I change these settings, my Intel 13900K will run at a boost frequency of around 5.7 to 5.8 or 30 minutes straight on an R23 benchmark. I've even seen it hit 6.1 gigahertz on light load. That is a blazing fast CPU. Next up is the third thing, and that is to clean your PC. PCs move a lot of air into the system and out of the system through the intake and exhaust fans and through radiators, and through heat sinks, and everything that's keeping your system nice and cool. That means any dust or dirt that's floating around in the air is gonna eventually find its way inside of your PC. This means clogged air filters, which is going to reduce the amount of air that can flow through them and cause a decrease in its cooling capacity. Radiators and heat sinks are also susceptible to becoming covered in dust, which reduces its ability to have thermal transfer. So what does this mean for the performance of your computer? Well, remember the turbo speed that we just got done enabling? These increased speeds are going to introduce more heat into your system, and the longer that your PC is able to keep your CPU and GPU cool under the thermal throttling thresholds means you're going to be able to run those boost frequencies for longer than you were before. So take the time to clean your PC and make sure that it's as dust-free as possible. If you live in a super dusty area, I would recommend checking your PC once every couple months and cleaning it as necessary. However, if you live in a place that's not super dusty or dirty, you might be able to get away with checking your PC once every 6 months and cleaning as necessary. I'll be creating a video in the future on how to clean your PC, as there are some things you do want to avoid. But for now, do a little bit of research on the best way to clean your PC before jumping into that task. Now, the next thing that you can do to increase the speed of your computer is to give your GPU more power. This is an extremely simple task and only requires one piece of software. I use a program called MSI Afterburner, and I'll leave a link in the description below so that you can go ahead and download it if you want to. Once you have MSI Afterburner installed, you can launch the program and then take the power limit slider and slide it all the way to the right. This will give the GPU some extra power, and you should see some slightly higher core clocks. And that's going to translate to a couple extra frames per second, all from just sliding a simple slider to the right for absolutely free. Depending on how your system is configured, this last item might give you the largest perceived speed increase out of all of these tips. We need to ensure that the refresh rate that your system is using is set to your monitor's maximum. Setting this to the maximum will smooth out the content that's being displayed on your screen, and it will give you a much more smooth and fast user experience. On a side note, if you're using any of the frame rate syncing technologies like G-Sync, that means that your frame rate is going to be capped at the hertz setting of your monitor. So if you have your monitor set to 30 hertz or 60 hertz, that means your game is only going to run at 30 or 60 frames per second. So by increasing the refresh rate of your system, your games are going to run much faster as long as you have the raw power behind it to do so. Now, these changes are just unleashing the full potential of what the manufacturer intended for the products that you purchase. This is not traditionally considered overclocking, as you're just enabling features that have come with your motherboard, CPU, GPU, or RAM. We're not manipulating any core clock multipliers or voltages, and we're just allowing what the manufacturers intended the products to do. I hope that these tips were able to help you speed up your computer. And if you thought this video was helpful, go ahead and click here to watch more Tectonic Systems videos. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.